What's up, NBA fans? What's up, all sports fans? What's up, NBA fans? What's up, all sports fans? What's up, NBA fans? What's up, all sports fans? Welcome to the Behind the Bench podcast. This is your co-host, JB, right here. And just wanted to drop in and talk some NBA hoops as we have reached the end of the regular season for the NBA 2021-2022 campaign. And it's a very exciting time, I believe, for the league. A lot of great things are happening. There's a transition that's taking place that's rarely being discussed among a lot of these leading sports personalities and programs. And what is taking place is what normally takes place within the NBA landscape every decade. And we have a new generation of young stars that have emerged, that have been emerging over the past 3-4 years, and now they have arrived. And it's not just young stars, but young teams that these stars are playing on. And it's refreshing to see because we have been stuck in the malaise of the past 12 years, which has represented the super team era that was introduced to the basketball public and to the basketball conscious 12 years ago, starting in 2010, when that super team in Miami was formed. LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh. And while initially it may have drawn a lot of interest among fans, when you look back on it and when you see how things have played out, it's been a detriment to the league in every conceivable way. It has undermined competition. It has distorted history. It has devalued players. And it has caused organizations to act in extreme fashion, trying to duplicate what was started in 2010. And the first example of that is what happened with the Brooklyn Nets in 2012, when they decided to try to duplicate the super team model that was spearheaded in Miami. And they traded 3 first-round picks to the Boston Celtics to acquire Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Jason Terry. Now, the thing is, the first 2 players, Paul Pierce and KG, they are surefire first ballot Hall of Fame players, and they was inducted as such last year. Jason Terry was one of the premier 6 men in the league, and he won a world championship in Dallas with Dirk Nowitzki back in 2011. And that team had 1 year of so-called success, or so that it appeared to be, when they went and advanced to the second round of the playoff, the Eastern Conference semifinals, and wound up losing to the very team that they tried to duplicate in the Miami Heat. And the problem was, by trying to reduplicate that, they did so with aging players. Whereas the Miami Heat super team, all 3 of those guys they was either entering their prime or were already in their prime, like a Dwayne Wade. So you fast forward, and we see example after example of teams trying to mimic that, or along the way, they try to clear cap space, waiving players, letting current players' contract expire to create the cap space necessary to attract that premier free agent. And the problem was, when they did not seal the deal and they didn't acquire that coveted free agent, they set themselves back because there was no plan B. So we saw a lot of situations where organizations, by setting themselves back, they couldn't compete. So that's a perfect example of how competition throughout the league was undermined and impacted, particularly in the Eastern Conference. So when people look back and say, well, LeBron James went to 8 straight finals. Well, there was a reason why he went to 8 straight finals. Because number one, he played in a talent deficient conference for 8 seasons while playing on the super team. 4 years in Miami and then 4 years in Cleveland when he returned back to the Cavaliers and formed the second super team. And after Derrick Rose injured his ACL in 2012, he didn't face another superstar in the playoff for 7 years. For 7 long years. That when you think about it, man, you would think it's inconceivable that a scenario like that can play out, but it did. And that's because competition was distorted and the landscape was manipulated. So now we're going to talk about one of the all-time storied sports franchises that is currently operating in a state of flux, in a state of chaos. And I'm talking about none other than the team that guy is playing on right now, the Los Angeles Lakers. And here's a team that formed not just a super team, but virtually an all-decade squad. They have 5 Hall of Famers on this team. They had big name after big name. Players who returned back to the organization after playing for it 2 years ago when their team advanced to the bubble finals in 2020. Right? So here we are. Bring back all these names. And then you sign a Carmelo Anthony. You bring back a Dwight Howard. You sign a DeAndre Jordan. You bring back a Rajon Rondo. You bring back an Avery Bradley. You bring back fan favorite Trevor Ariza, who was part of that magical 2009 Laker championship team led by the late, great Kobe Bryant and Paul Gasol. So the stage was set. The so-called experts predicted that they would run through the league and dominate like we've never seen. You had some people say they was going to win 73 games. They was going to break Golden State single season victory total of 73 wins. But the thing is, yeah, they can win 70 games, but over the course of 2 seasons. And a lot of people fell for the okie doke. And I get it. I get it. But see, it shows that not only were the experts misguided, but it's because of the changing landscape why their prediction did not come to pass. So you go from a team that's predicted to win it all to a team that did not even qualify for the play-in tournament. Well, why is that? Why is it that we see all these young teams thriving, even when we have seen all these players, a lot of top players, injured? LA had their rash of injuries this year, but also the Memphis Grizzlies was dealing with their injury issues with their top players, John Morant and Dillon Brooks, but they didn't miss a beat. And they wound up finishing the season with 56 wins and clinching number 2 seed in the Western Conference. So what is the issue? Why did the Lakers drop the way they did? Well, we're looking at it. It's because they mortgaged away all their young talent that they drafted from 2014 up until 2018. That's the problem with the team. It's not so much that they couldn't play defense this year. It wasn't a lack of coaching that they felt did not resonate this year. It wasn't necessarily because of age per se. It's because they have no talent pool of their own. So everything they're missing is in this picture. from playmaking from a point guard to being able to score on the block with a player who can do that with his back to the basket, with a wingman who can guard, who has a 7'3" wingspan, and who has developed a mid-range game that's among the best in the league. You're missing depth. You're missing rebounding. You're missing intangibles. But see, when you gut your franchise out like this, when just 4 years ago, you had NBA insiders, you had NBA journalists, you had NBA beat writers who all said during that period when the Los Angeles Lakers were starting all over again and trying to establish a future for itself, that the Los Angeles Lakers had the best, deepest, and most talented young core in the NBA. So if that's the case, which it was, because I'm a Los Angeles Lakers fan, why would you mortgage all that away? Why would you let players go for nothing? And why would you trade that young talent away when that's what you needed to establish your future moving ahead? And I'm not just talking about 5 years. I'm talking about 10 years plus. Because you drafted mainly one and done players entering the league at 18, 19 years old. But the beautiful part about what the Lakers were doing in the scouting department was that they completed an initial phase of drafting featuring one and done players, and then they start drafting players with, 2-3 years, in some cases 4 years of college experience. Like a Josh Hart, like a Kyle Kuzma, who came in, they were more refined as players because they had developed their skill playing significant years in college. Whereas the one and done talent that we drafted, like the Julius Randles, the Lonzo Balls, the Brandon Ingrams, well, they were one and done players. So it was going to take time for them to develop. But what's crazy is they were progressing and developing right before our eyes. They were competing. They were playing hard. They repped their jersey. The fans were enthusiastic. Enthusiasm was off the roof. There was great energy. It was a positive vibe. It was something to look forward to. Everything felt fresh. The new era of Laker basketball was being ushered in. It's just going to take a little time because they were young. But in the midst of all of that, it was proclaimed and proven that we had the best young talent in basketball. And over the course of these past 4 years, and really over the course of 2 seasons, we went from having the youngest team in basketball to becoming the oldest team in basketball. But normally in sports, when you make a transition like that, it usually happens the other way around, where your team has a run with a current roster of players. They make their run, and then as the players get older, you start all over again by drafting young players. The Lakers went in reverse. And as a result, by going in reverse and going backwards and trying to pursue instant gratification, just 4 years ago when they were ahead of the curve among all the teams that were starting over again, now they're behind the 8 ball. And it's reflecting in that record that they got. They finished the season 33-49, 32 games out of first place. And the teams that are atop the conference in the West, well, just 3-4 years ago, they was also building their future roster foundation with the young players that they drafted. They didn't mortgage away their young talent. And because of that, the fact that they were patient with their development, now they're reaping the rewards of that. And that's why Phoenix is sitting there at the top of the conference right now with the best record in the league, and they are better than they were last year. And when many people felt that they were a fluke, well, they're showing that they were anything but a fluke. Because a lot of people forget, when they played in that bubble 2 years ago, they were the only team that finished undefeated in the seeding round before the bubble playoff started. But they were one game away from qualifying for their playoff because of the excellent play of Damian Lillard, who carried the Portland Trailblazers and helped them clinch that AC in the bubble. And it took a Herculaneum effort for him to do it because he had to score, 55-point games, 60-point games. You know what I mean? He was playing out of his mind. It took that to stave off Phoenix, where you can see that they were emerging, and it carried over to last year, and they started bringing in veteran pieces. They brought in a Jay Crowder, people like that, and then they sealed the deal when they brought in Chris Paul. And see, nobody said that you can win a title with all young players. But when you're starting over, man, you damn sure can't get rid of all of them. Because at that point, you ain't got no future. And that's why the Lakers are scrambling now. That's why the Lakers look so discombobulated throughout the course of the season. There was no chemistry. Because for the second straight year, no, actually, over the course of these past 4 years, the roster has been overhauled 4 times in between 3 seasons of that 4-year period. So you got fans out here confused as to what's going on. The problem that the Lakers are having is that they gave up on their real talent. They gave up on their real team. That's the problem. So when you brought in one guy, namely LeBron James, the foundation was given up for it. The direction of the franchise changed overnight from building towards the future to not just winning now, but we got to win right now. Because at that moment, the timetable operated, it went from being under the organization's timetable to that guy's timetable. And that's why this franchise is where it's at right now. So you gave up the foundation for one guy, then you gave up the ghost to get Anthony Davis. You gave up the ghost to get Anthony Davis when you didn't have to do it. And see, the impression was given when they got AD. Now, AD is a tremendous talent. During his last year in New Orleans, going into that season, many people predicted that he was going to be a leading candidate for a season MVP. Based on his performance in the playoffs that previous year in 2018 when the Pelicans upset Portland in the first round and gave Golden State Warriors 5 tough games in that second round, the Western Conference semifinals. But when he has to be traded, the Pelican organization, found itself in total disarray, as well as the Lakers too. So you had 2 franchises that was their seasons was totally flatline because there was this no holds barred effort, no matter what it took. Got to get AD when you didn't have to do it. Not in that manner. So as a result, your future was mortgaged away. And I don't think fans understand. When you mortgage your future away, that's exactly what you mortgage over. So because of that, now, initially, the trade was designed for the Lakers to have the advantage for that initial first year, which gave the impression that the Lakers won that trade. And fans were led to believe that the Lakers would always have the better team than New Orleans at the expense of 3 of their real players who they drafted. But you fast forward 2 years after that bubble, now you look at the situation and the landscape has totally changed. And we're going to find out very fast, and we're seeing it now, who really won that trade. Not just won that trade, but fleeced the Lakers out of their whole future. And it's going to show this offseason. Not only did the Lakers mortgage away 3 players, there was a cornerstone for their future, but they relinquished their draft rights up until 2026. So during the timetable of their trade, because of the fashion and the extreme nature that the Lakers mortgaged everything away to pursue instantaneous success, which that was never the Laker way or no franchise way who had long-standing success and won multiple titles. No team has ever went this route before. So during this time period, it's going to show unequivocally that they will never be able to fill the void and compensate for their real talent that was let go and traded away and shipped off. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen no matter what they do. And that's why they keep having to try to overhaul this roster. So you go from having the youngest team in the league in 2018, 2019 to having the oldest team in the league 2019 to 2020, the year of the bubble. Then knowing that their team was old and that they was fading out because of their age, you try to so-called go young again to give fans the impression that the real young talent was expendable. So you bring in 8 new players last year, and then a season later, none of those players who you brought in last year remain on the roster. That's a problem. And it's a sign that we shouldn't have went this route. So you go from young to old to try to get younger, then you went all out old. And you just said, the heck with it. We're going to try to get every big name out there who had, based on past reputation. You know, you bring in Carmelo Anthony, 8th all-time leading scorer. You bring back Dwight Howard, who, you know, in his prime, he was the best center in the game, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. I think he won like 4 rebounding titles. And not to mention, last year they brought in Andre Drummond, who I think he's won multiple rebounding titles in his own right. But you keep rotating players in and out of here, and you keep missing the mark because we gave up on our real talent. And throughout this whole period, over these 4 years, these young men in this picture, Julius Randle, Jordan Clarkson, 6-man, Julius Randle, who was second team All-NBA last year, Jordan Clarkson, the reigning 6-man of the year, Larry Nance Jr., who's going to provide you energy, hustle. He's going to make exciting plays for you. He's improved on his defense and rebounding, and he's just a good player to have on your team. He's a great team player, and he's someone that gives his teammates encouragement to go out there and do their best. And that young man right there in the back, wearing with the white Laker jersey on, he was drafted as a prospect. His real name is Ivica Zubac. This is a young man who was drafted at the age of like 17, on the cusp of turning 18. He was a prospect. And really, this should be the Lakers starting center right now. Now he's developing to a quality center, even though he gets limited opportunities to score now for the Clippers. He has no business on that team. He was traded to that team on a humbug. But here go young man, has great footwork, had great touch around the basket. He's going to shoot about 64 or 65% from the floor, and he's going to shoot about 75% from the free throw line, and he's improved his rebounding. The only issue with him is that he don't get the necessary shot attempts to really elevate his game playing with the Clippers right now. But the fact of the matter is, he is developing to a legitimate starting center in the NBA who helped the Los Angeles Clippers reach the conference finals for the first time in their franchise history. And he's part of that. Then the man in the middle, Brandon Ingram, he's on the cusp of superstardom, and he's one of the 3 best mid-range shooters in basketball. And over the course of the past 2 years, he has improved his free throw shooting by 19%, which is a record in one season. That's a record in NBA history in terms of improving the degree that one has improved their free throw percentage. 6'9", 7'3" wingspan, and now he's really discovered his game by playing his proper position, which is the shooting guard. So his future, I mean, he's really just, he's in a great situation now, playing alongside newly acquired C.J. McCollum, and the New Orleans Pelicans are going to show who won their trade hands down, because they got draft picks coming year after year after year, courtesy of the Lakers, and they just sitting there pretty. And within 2 years, they're going to look like the Phoenix Suns and the Memphis Grizzlies. There's no way it's not going to happen. Then you got Lonzo Ball, his rookie year, even though he had an unorthodox shot, and even though he probably entered the league too early, but nonetheless, his rookie numbers mirror that of Hall of Fame point guard Jason Kidd. We had our own Jason Kidd as a rookie. And now over the course of the past 3 years, he's improved his shot to the point where he's now one of the best three-point shooters in the league. He's now shooting like 80% from the free throw line. And he's become one of the best defensive guards in basketball. See where patience gets you? Kyle Kuzma. A lot of Laker fans may not know this, but not only was he top 5 Rookie of the Year candidate, but he's top 5 in Laker history in total points scored in a season by a rookie. So that means he's in the same breath for Laker history as a rookie as Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, Magic Johnson, and either Gail Goodrich or James Worthy. He's top 5. And he came in with the eye of the tiger. His teammates gravitated to him to hit that big shot. And since his first year being traded to Washington Wizards, he's hit like 5 or 6 game winners for them this year. And he propelled his game to the point where he predicted that he would average 22 points a game. And since the month of December, that's what he averaged. And he's become a very good rebounder and a better defender. And then you got Josh Hart, who into the NBA, playing 4 years of college at University of Villanova, helped lead that team to the national title. So he came in with championship intangibles. He has moxie about his game. And as of right now, over the course of the past 2-3 years, seasons, he is the best rebounder in the league for a player at his height, 6'5" and under. So you combine all this young talent together, and I'm not even I haven't even mentioned players like D'Angelo Russell and Thomas Bryant, Alex Caruso, and Mo Wagner, and Zavi Mikhaili, who was the sharpshooter who we drafted out of the University of Kansas. And out of all those players who we drafted over that period, not one has been considered a bust. Not one. That's how good we drafted. So the Lakers find themselves in flux now in 2022. But this is what happens when you mortgage away the future and give up the ghost. So everything that they're missing and that they need, they already had because they drafted it. And if they would have been allowed to grow and develop as players and mature, and you add the right free agent to anchor them, the Lakers would have had a future for the ages and would have had another memorable era of Laker basketball, which would have resulted in multiple championships. But now that's gone. And sooner or later, these young men, they deserve their props because when the Lakers started all over again, they was willing to rep their jersey and they made Laker Nation proud. And nobody can say that they played lazy. Nobody can say they didn't compete. And nobody can say that they shortchanged the fans. That can never be said. So I will discuss more about the talent that we had and where the direction of the league is going. I think it's fantastic what's going on with the NBA right now with all this young talent that needs to be recognized, and they deserve the stage. And they're finally going to get it this postseason without all the antics and talks about who's the GOAT and all this nonsense. We get to see NBA basketball at its best, spearheaded by this young talent and then defending NBA champion Giannis Antetokounmpo, who is seeking to repeat with the Milwaukee Bucks. So there's a lot of great storylines. You got Brooklyn in the playoffs, Philly with Joel Embiid, who's one of the leading candidates for MVP, along with Nikola Jokic, reigning MVP with the Denver Nuggets. We get to see Luka Doncic, the Miami Heat, #1 seed in the Eastern Conference, a young upstart Charlotte Hornet team who's doing their thing, trying to rise to the top, up the rankings. So it's a lot of great things to look forward to this decade, and I'm looking forward to it. But I just wanted to shed light on that. And again, this is your co-host JB for Behind the Bench podcast. And I thank you for tuning in, and I will talk to you later. Holla.